we are doing Hitting the Books quest, which is like the beginning series of the Endwalker quest line, the new content. My directions were easy enough to follow, I hope. In any case, you stand now before the doors of Numenon, Charlayan's grandest collection of books and tomes. This building is actually only an entrance, and one of many at that. Okay. For the archives of Numenon extend deep beneath the surface like the roots of a tree. The vast halls of the great Gubal Library pale in comparison to Numenon's endless maze of subterranean chambers. Any citizen of Charlayan is free to enter and peruse its shelves. Well, most of its shelves. Only Archons are afforded access to certain restricted vaults. I've dispatched Ishtola and Raha to investigate those. Meanwhile, Alice and Alphino will help me continue my search through the stacks open to the general public. Your status presents more of a problem. As a non-citizen, you are only permitted to browse the first floor here at the entrance. Even so, there should be a number of books which touch upon Charlayan history or foreign policy. Your task will be to find and study the relevant publications. I promise you a working knowledge of those subjects will make it far easier to spot the sort of clues we're looking for. Let us be about it, shall we? I've told the others to meet us at the stone benches over there once they found something or some promising tomes. Happy reading. Is that gonna open? Okay. Brightly colored. Makes quest for Hero Warrior of Light. You need to find books. Goes for pretty colors first. Nice. Oh, here we go. Narrator voice. Long, long ago, on an island in the northern sea, there lived a Rogadian man by the name of Neunkrepf. Neunkrepf was a student of astrology, and he divined that a flood of terrifying proportions would soon sweep over the lands of Eorzea. So it was that he built a gigantic ship, assembled a crew, and set sail for that imperiled realm. The flood arrived as foretold, and to their horror, the strangely churning waters drove the people towards the ocean. It was there, however, that Neunkrepf's crew hauled them aboard his ark, but the danger had not passed. A towering wave approached, threatening to smash the vessel to pieces. With only moments to spare, Neunkrepf wove a mighty spell of teleportation and shifted the entire ship to safety atop Abalathia's spine. Refugees from the surrounding regions huddled there alongside them, but it was not long before disputes over the dwindling supply of food led to violence and bloodshed. Saddened by the sight, Neunkrepf gathered to him his crew and his grateful passengers and abandoned the ark to those reddened peaks. They journeyed to the coast where they built a new ship, intent upon returning to the northern seas. They landed on the beach of an island and settled upon that very spot. That settlement prospered and grew, and in time, it became the city of Charlayan that we live in to this day. Not bad. A red covered book. Roads of Old, the Colony. I feel like I'm getting dyslexic reading these. What the hell? Many years ago on the banks of the Talia, in the Dravanian hinterlands, a Charlayan colony once thrived. This settlement was originally established as a mere outpost to study the ethereal sea in the year 1311 of the 6th astral era. Scholars dispatched to Eorzea found the facilities wanting, and their demands encouraged a gradual expansion in structures and services. As rumors spread of a growing community of academics, the area was further inundated with Eorzean students hoping to share in the renowned wisdom of the Charlayans. 50 years later, the Forum passed a motion to recognize what had become a flourishing town as an official Charlayan colony. Eorzean residents took to calling the colony itself Charlayan, which led to no small amount of confusion when discussions turned to the subject of the motherland. In response, some Charlayan inhabitants, if pressed for a name, would simply refer to it as Emporium. Following the Exodus, however, goblins and treasure hunters claimed for themselves a quarter of the abandoned colony and gave it yet another name, Idleshire. Did not know that. That's actually really neat, because Idleshire plays a very important role in the level 60 expansion. That's pretty awesome, actually. The following chapters go on to introduce the most prominent features of Idle Shower. This book does not appear to contain additional information on the forum, or cover the history of the Charlayan motherland in greater detail. Oh my god. That's a lot of books. Oh, you know what? I'm running in the library, and nobody's gonna stop me. The title on the spine reads, The Voice of a Growling City. In the years which followed the founding of Charlayan, civic policy and other matters of import were decided at the Ecclesia, a public forum at which every citizen was eligible to speak. As the city's population grew, however, this format became increasingly impractical. The larger number of participants gave rise to ever longer debates, resulting in significant delays of vital resolutions. Various measures were introduced in an attempt to curtail protracted discussions, but in the year 201 of the 6th Astral Era, it was ultimately decreed that Charlayan would transition to a new form of governance. The nation would now be led by a body of 99 members, citizens chosen from amongst their peers by means of a nationwide vote. Thus was the forum as we know it today conceived and created. Much like Greco-Roman history. Have you ever gazed at the skies above and contemplated the mysteries contained therein? I speak not of shifting cloud patterns, but of the vastness beyond, of the sun and the twinkling tapestry of the night. Some think the dome above us to be a finite space, yet amongst the leading thinkers of our age, one scholar's depiction of a boundless sea of stars has firmly taken root. Alas, this heavenly sea remains an unreachable, unknowable destination. There are few indeed who can explain, in satisfactory detail, why our own star is believed to revolve around the sun. It was the chronologists of Alag who came closest to understanding the laws which govern the starry abyss. It was they who launched Alamud and sought to expand beyond our earthbound existence. Having read of their ancient ambitions, I wonder, has your interest in this field of study waxed or waned? What if I were to tell you that the eternal constellations were arranged differently in the distance past? That their positions continue to shift almost imperceptibly, but measurably, as we journey into the future? Would it shock you to learn that the stars drift further and further apart, and may indeed do so forever? Are you eager to learn more? This book's on the wrong subject. Search for works which gain to details on the forum or mention the history of Charlayan. See, most people wouldn't even read the books. I mean, obviously not in my narrator voice, but like, most people would just right-click and then spam it until it's done, you know? And you kind of lose a lot of the story. And why speedrun? If you want to speedrun a game, this is not it. My beloved seekers of knowledge, have you ever put learning before your health and neglected to feed and rest your body as you should? I too once engaged in such foolish practices, but one night, and engrossed in philosophical study, I had an epiphany. For all the world's mysteries that drive us to reckless abandon, if we have so very few years of life in which to achieve our goals, thus do I share with you this mantra: I am forever 20 summers young. The number itself is unimportant. Be 19 or 23 or 40, whatever age you are when you discover this manual, let that be the age you aspire to remain. 32. Though mindful, healthy living, will you extend the time available to spend upon your chosen research? Another day, another moon, another summer to grasp the greater truths you pursue. In the pages that follow, we will explore the secrets of maintaining one's physical condition from a biological, a theological, and arcane viewpoint. Obviously not what we're looking for. But it's basically mysticism for Eorzeans. During the chaos of the 6th Umbral Calamity, Archon Neunkrempf, founder of Charlayan, bore witness to the madness and savagery of men brought to the brink of despair. Upon raising a settlement on an island in the northern empty, he instructed his people thus: renounce the ways of war, and pursue enlightenment through knowledge and reason. The Charlayans took to heart the words of their savior, and thenceforth served as stewards of wisdom. Upon a foundation of accumulated learning, they built a homeland unlike any other, a nation born from strength of minds rather than strength of arms. With knowledge of economics came shrewd trading. With knowledge of agriculture came bountiful crops. Engineering brought walls and sewers, ending squabbles over water. Wealth of expertise could be bartered for wealth in coin, and the more their wisdom spread throughout the world, the more mankind as a whole would thrive. And so it was that no matter the trials and tribulations of the age, the citizens of Charlayan would live by their founders' teachings. For the sake of a better tomorrow, for the sake of a brighter star, they would eschew the tools of war, and with knowledge deliver the world. Yay. Welcome. Something. Oof. Can't do my Warcraft sounds. If you're just joining, we're doing the walkthrough now. Now we're getting through the actual storyline. So if you don't want to watch the Endwalker storyline, or you want to avoid spoilers because you haven't gotten this far yet, now would be the time to bounce. Voice acting. Sorry, were you waiting long? I wanted to make sure I'd borrowed at least a few promising volumes. Alphano and Kryl should also be along shortly. I was delayed in a similar fashion. As far as I could see, no titles in the Archon stacks mentioned the final days specifically. So we have no choice but to start with the tangentially relevant tomes, if they are even that. At present, the plan is to skim through as quickly as we dare and share our discoveries as we make them. It would have been nice to invite everyone to the estate. Plenty of comfortable places to read, and a ready supply of hot tea. Oh, I always quite fond of reading outside. But it's not about the little pleasures, is it? You miss your home. It's been difficult. After our arrival, we managed to speak with one of the family servants and ask how things were. It seems our dear father has instructed the staff that even if Alphano and I were returned to Charlayan, we were not to be allowed across the threshold. Father of the Year award. A harsh measure indeed. I hope that our efforts to understand his position and that of the Forum will perhaps lead to a reconciliation. We'll mend this rift one day, I'm certain of it. And what of you, Graha? Have you been to visit your family, or do they not live here in the city? My situation is also somewhat complicated. I was raised in Charlayan, yes, but I was born rather far away. In the southern reaches of Ilsabard, in fact. For generations, my people have dwelt in Corvos, the coastal region opposite the island of Thavnair. The Allegans founded a city in that fertile land, and by ship brought in subjugated tribes of the Mikote to serve as laborers. Of course, the massive earthquakes of the Fourth Umbral Calamity brought an end to the Empire's reign, and when the Fifth Calamity froze the seas solid, many of the tribes still living in Corvos braved the journey back to Eorzea. Damn. My ancestors, however, chose to remain, that they might prevent the remnants of Allegan technology from being misused. Isn't Corvos under Garlean rule? For the past 50 years, yes. Some semblance of local culture remains, as is the case for most imperial provinces, but Garlemald renamed the region Locus Amonis. Amoanus? When I was a boy, a nearby town came under the jurisdiction of an illustrious imperial family, the nobles of House Darnus. She's so imposing. House Darnus demonstrated a singular interest in Allegan civilization, and so my tribe was forced to consider a plan of action. For some time already, voices have been raised in favor of abandoning our ancient customs. After all, the Allegan Eye no longer passed to our eldest children as reliably as it once had. Fear of discovery eventually tipped the scales, and the decision was made to bury our ties to the knowledge and traditions of Alag. As the last child born with the Allegan eye, I was given over to the custody of friends and the students of Baldessian, who had me registered as a Charlayan citizen. I never even considered. Forgive me, it was an unkind question. Even Thancred was taken in by Archon Louiseau, was he not? Stories of adopted waifs and rescued orphans are more common among Charlayans than you might think. Yet, regardless of our origins, we are all provided with an equal opportunity to learn, and with sufficient perspicacity, we outsiders can even earn the vaunted title of Archon. 'Tis exactly why I have such love for this country, and why I wish it to remain a nation of which its citizens can be proud. Hear, hear! Another good reason to get to the bottom of the forum's stubbornness, aside from the trifling matter of our impending doom. What a whip. Excuse us while we try to make some headway into these books, Sagenhaft. More company should be arriving any moment now. We've returned with our selections. Although I must say, the pickings were quite slim indeed. Mistress Kryle has already flicked through every history book devoted to disasters, and more than a few which barely made mention of them. As such, we will be looking into research papers on the umbral calamities, as well as articles written by prominent forum members. Perhaps their knowledge of the final days comes from an unexpected source. Speaking of which, might I ask you a few questions related to the final days? I'm the only one here who didn't witness the events of Amaro firsthand, and fear I may be overlooking critical details. Yes, child, I shall answer thine questions. My thanks. Now where to begin? The beginning, I hope. First things first. What kind of phenomenon did the ancients encounter as the final days drew nigh? A complete destabilization of creation magics. True. Primals of unrivaled power were summoned from the aether. Also true. And the worst kind of phenomenon you can imagine. I think that's the most terrifying thing to tell her. Primals of unrivaled power were summoned from the aether. Even though my character's a femme bunny, but you know. I believe Hadolin and Zodiac were summoned after the final days had arrived. Quite deliberately, in fact. You know what, Alphino? I didn't ask you, did I? No, I didn't. If we are speaking of phenomenon caused by the final days, the chaos of creation magics running rampant is what first comes to mind. Fear and despair manifested in terrible, tangible fashion. Meteors raining from the sky, fire erupting from the ground, indescribable abominations prowling the streets. That more or less aligns with my understanding. If only the arts of creation had survived until the present day, we might have had something substantial to analyze. To the best of your knowledge, however, those techniques were not preserved or passed on. Ishtola surmises that the closest known magic is that of the summoning rituals promulgated by the Asians. Was there aught else of note which heralded the approach of the final days? Let's see how much I remember the last expansion. The entire star was engulfed by disaster all at once. They say it began with a keening sound from the land itself. Alphino, you can answer this one, you smarmy smart bastard. Me? Well, as you wish. Ha! Do I know Alphino or do I know Alphino? The Amoratines were debating the cause of an anomaly which had been observed in the lands across the sea. By this fact alone, we can deduce that the final days occurred not all at once the world over, but rather had a point of origin from which it began to spread. Others also spoke of a keening sound rising from the land itself just before a region was visited by catastrophe. We never did hear the sound ourselves, of course, thrust as we were into the midst of the madness. And see, I was actually going to say that it was the keening sound, but, you know, like a multiple choice test, well, it obviously couldn't start the world wide over. Keening sound makes sense, but Alphina was the funny choice. So the ground was crying out, you say? To be considered the harbinger of doom, it must have been quite distinctive, and probably quite loud. Like the trumpets played by the angels, perhaps. I'll have to speak with one of Numenon's mamettes and ask after any books which make mention of such a sound. Last but not least, would you describe how the ancients sought to quell this unprecedented calamity? What definitive action did they take? Really? Gonna not? Hello? Mouse. They summoned Zodiac. That's exactly what they did. That is precisely what they did. Tell me I'm wrong, Alphino. That's what I thought. Yes, with Elidibus serving as his heart. So many gave themselves in sacrifice to bring him into being. We do not know exactly how Zodiac brought salvation to the One Star, only that by his godlike will were the laws of nature set aright. Then, once the balance was redressed, the ancients offered up a further sacrifice to heal the ravages of the final days. Lives sprouted anew, and it was these fledgling souls they intended to render unto Zodiac, a trade that would have allowed them to resurrect the shades of loved ones absorbed by the primal. Or might have, had Vena and her followers, or fellows, not manifested their opposition in the form of Hydaelyn. Thank you, both of you, for the detailed review. I feel much more confident now in my understanding of events. With all that freshly in mind, it does make me wonder what the Telophoroi truly mean when they speak of bringing back the final days. We've seen what they're doing with those towers of theirs, is forcing people to summon primals a kind of catalyst. Are they attempting to mirror the conditions caused by unstable creation magics? Or are they simply using the final days as a figure of speech? A convenient metaphor for the scale of destruction they plan to unleash. But this is all just pointless conjecture at this stage. Let us return our attention to the forum, shall we? As we should an eye out for Y'shtola, but 'tis time we began studying these research papers. Really? I get to wait here again? Well, hold on a second then. I'm gonna grab a spoon. I need my snacks. Alright, what you got for us, Y'shtola? My lady love. Which, okay, quick aside. Y'shtola is by far my favorite character in this series as, like, the main characters. But you got to play as Alice in, like, the last mission of Shadowbringers. I cannot even begin to tell you how incredible that was. Alright. I'm the last, am I? Well, my extended search of the Archon stacks produced one or two possibly useful books. That's my girl! Show 'em how it's done. But I wouldn't get your hopes up. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to do the British a little bit better. Because the only British I know is incredibly pretentious upper class and Cockney. And they speak, well, normal. And I don't know how to do a normal British accent. If you recall, Urianger learned of the source's reflections from the Gay-Rune oracles. For its potential to cause panic and confusion, that tome was deemed apocrypha and sealed away in the great Grubel library. 'tis even less likely that knowledge of the unsummoned world, not to mention the horrors of the final days, would be left sitting on a shelf for any curious scholar to find. It stands to reason that my colleagues, be they archons or counselors, should perforce be largely ignorant of the subject. Yet when he confronted Master Fortuneau with knowledge of the Telophroi and their machinations, he scoffed at the suggestion that they posed a threat. He seemed adamant that the Forum would know if the final days were truly upon us, which only supports the conclusion that whatever privileged wisdom is guiding the Forum's behavior, it is being kept secret from the rest of the nation. Maybe I shouldn't pick such a foreboding costume. Are you kidding me? Not that I mean to excuse myself from reading duty. Whether they contain mentions of the final days or no, these books could yet hold something of value. You weren't thinking of leaving, were you? There's plenty of work for everyone. Ha! Get him! Oh, Ishtola. Right? Yeah, I and here's the best part, right? Like, I'm German, so I know German. But I can't do a German accent. It ends up sounding French. Or Scandinavian, maybe, but it's never sounding like a German. You labor for what feels like an age as a stroller research assistant. Oh, if only. Notice me, senpai. Please notice me. Alright. So, oh, I get to turn that in. Oh, nope, we're gonna read. Or not. Your efforts to gain Grahatia's attention go unnoticed. He appears to be lost in his reading. Oh, what's this outfit? Ofa Torskin top of castle. That's an interesting one. It's like another dancer outfit. Oh, wow. Less reading, more onomatopoeia. Thank you for your help, but I think I can manage the rest without your assistance. If I were you, I'd steal a few quiet moments for myself. I could do a Scottish accent and an Irish accent, but I can't do normal British. And that's what they all sound like. They all sound like Harry Potter. Maybe that's what I need to do. I need to just binge watch Harry Potter and then do a live stream and RP. Oh dear, you look exhausted. What about your studies? Were you able to find any books on the subjects I mentioned? Was I supposed to? Ah, then the day was well spent. Oh, that was what I did at the beginning. Should you wish to read them again, a mamet at the reference desk will point you in the right direction. For the moment, though, I suggest you take a well-deserved rest. We might be occupied with our research for quite some time. Nice.